Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Jacob.
Hey, it's our history unit, and we're going to go back to the turn of the century, back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, and talk about a period of history that really is upsetting to me. Sometimes you see this, and you still see it in current modern history as well, where companies know that their product is dangerous or might hurt people, but they go ahead and produce it anyway and sell it. Why do they do that? For money. It's always about money. So we're going to be talking about the story of the Radium Girls. Now, some of you out there who really follow film may have heard of the Radium Girls as a movie. It came out in 2020. Because of COVID, they had to delay it a bit. But it was an indie film, meaning not a lot of money was spent on it, but I heard it's worth seeing. I like history, so I think I'm going to try to check it out, see if I can rent it somewhere or buy a copy. Have you heard about the Radium Girls at all? Is this the first time
I haven't. No, the first sort of exposure I'm getting is from this article. So I'd be very interested in looking at watching the film, but it does sound like it was a pretty sad story.
Yeah, it's terrible. We're going to talk about radium. We're going to talk about radioactive material and about a group of women who worked in a factory and were told to do things that actually ended up killing many of them and disfiguring a lot of them as well. Let's get started. We're going to read through and then we'll be back to talk about some of these phrases, words, and also the history or the story of these women.
When you hear that something contains a significant amount of radioactive material, an alarm bell might go off in your head. Everyone knows radioactivity means danger. But this wasn't always common knowledge. In fact, many early 20th century manufacturers couldn't seem to put enough of it in their products. As you might imagine, this grave error yielded deadly results. The famous scientists Marie and Pierre Curie discovered the radioactive element radium in 1898. Despite warnings about its effects, radium was hastily put to use in manufacturing. This element naturally glows green, which made it popular for use in self-luminous paint and many household products. It was even advertised as a health remedy. Companies sold radium items, claiming they could help cure everything from blindness to asthma. Of course, with this much radium in circulation, it was only a matter of time before things went south. In the 1920s, a number of young women, all of whom were employed by the United States Radium Corporation, began dying. They worked in the company's factories, where they painted watch faces with radium-laced paint. The women had been instructed to point their brushes by wetting them with their lips, which they did hundreds of times every day. After regularly ingesting radium for years, many of the workers developed horrifying tumors and necrosis in their jaws. Several of these so-called Radium Girls sued the company, which had known about the dangers of radium, but had kept it from lower-level workers. The public nature of the trial and mounting death toll from radiation poisoning brought a swift end to the popularity of radium products. Sadly, this didn't save the Radium Girls, many of whom died within a few years. However, their sad fate had a substantial impact on modern workers' rights and public understanding of the hazards of radioactivity.
Okay, let's take a look at the title first, guys. I noticed there were several R's in the title. Sometimes we'll use the repetition of a consonant in a title, which makes it kind of fun. So, being reckless with radiation, the story of the Radium Girls. That's called alliteration. It's kind of like Sally sells seashells by the seashore. That's an example of alliteration where there's a lot of the same consonant at the beginning of each word. So, this is being reckless. If you're reckless, you take risks. Or you're not very cautious. So
you're careless.
Yeah, very careless. If you're described as being reckless, that's not a compliment at all, I think.
No.
A lot of times, kids will be reckless, but sometimes it's because they don't understand the danger that's ahead. So they're reckless with radiation. People want to avoid radiation because if you're exposed to too much of it, it typically leads to death, cancer at least. When we get an X-ray, we're exposed to some radiation.
That's why when you get an X-ray, they close a big metal door and they get away from you. Or maybe they put that apron if you're at the dentist and they're X-raying your teeth. They put that apron, that heavy apron over your body to protect you from the radiation.
Yeah, too much radiation is a bad thing. So this is actually a true story. It's from history. Back in the U.S., there were a group of women called the Radium Girls who worked in a factory. Radium is non-count. It's the radioactive element that is used in cancer treatments if you get radiation. My dad had radiation for cancer. It's also a chemical element. If you study chemistry, it's symbol Ra.
Okay.
So it's radium. So when you hear that something contains a significant amount of radioactive material, an alarm bell might go off in your head. It does for most everyone. Everyone knows that radioactivity means danger.
Right, so it's something you don't really want to get close to. That's why you'll always see the warning signs if anything is radioactive.
Yeah.
You might see they put a big sticker on there that might have a skull and crossbones or something to represent danger. But this wasn't always common knowledge, right? We're learning this.
Right.
In fact, many early 20th century manufacturers couldn't seem to put enough of it in their products, which is crazy to think that you would put this dangerous material in a product, but that's what manufacturers did. Now, a manufacturer is a person or a company that makes something. You can make anything. You could be a clothing manufacturer. You could be a computer chip manufacturer. Okay, so an umbrella manufacturer. Anything that you make usually to sell, you could say that you manufacture it. Manufacture is the verb. You are the manufacturer. That's the noun.
Yeah, and it's usually a company that makes large quantities of goods, and they have factories with big pieces of machinery. Yeah, manufacturer. It's not easy to say. We know that. It's kind of weird for us, too. Manufacturer. Put another R at the end. So, yeah, they were putting this radium into lots of things. Back then, though, they didn't understand a lot of what was poisonous, like lead. Arsenic was used in a lot of homes, which is a poison that you kill people with.
Well, lead paint, right?
That's lead paint.
Lead paint people would...
There was lead in women's makeup.
Right. It's crazy. We can't imagine that today, but that was the case.
Yeah. We've learned a lot, and we're still... continuing to learn, obviously. So, as you might imagine, it says, this grave error, putting lots of this radium in products, yielded or produced, that's what that means, deadly results. Grave here just means very, very serious. Yeah, if someone has a grave expression on their face, they're very serious. You better watch out.
Right. Or a grave illness could be a serious illness.
We use that a lot to talk about illnesses as well. So very serious. It requires serious thought or concern. It's a grave matter. The violation of this school rule is a grave matter, which means you're in trouble because you broke a rule that's serious. Now, we learn here in the next paragraph that the famous scientists Marie Curie and her husband Pierre, they discovered the radioactive element radium that I was talking about. The symbol is Ra. It's atomic number 88, I learned. Ooh. Yeah, I'm not into chemistry, but there you go. They actually discovered radium in 1898, just around the turn of the century there. Now, despite warnings about its effects, radium was hastily put to use in manufacturing. I think people were really excited they discovered such a fun, cool thing. And, of course, everybody rushes to make some money off of it. Right. Hastily just means you do something with haste, meaning you rush it. And it's done very quickly and sometimes not very carefully and a little bit sloppily. And that's what happened there.
And we know why people were excited because this element naturally glows green.
Ooh.
So that could be kind of different. That was new. If I see something glowing green, I would be a little bit nervous about it. But
kind of magical, though, huh?
Yeah. So it was popular for use in self-luminous paint. If something is luminous, it's glowing. And many household products. So it was used in paint and other products. It was even advertised as a health remedy. Oh my gosh. So something that actually made people sick in the beginning, they thought that it could be a health remedy.
It's crazy.
Companies sold radium items claiming they could help cure everything from blindness to asthma. Okay, so asthma, of course, is a disease of the lungs or a condition of the lungs. You have trouble breathing. A lot of children and people are affected by asthma. Of course, with this much radium in circulation or this much radium going around, if something circulates, C-I-R-C-U-L-A-T-E, it goes around. So circulation is the noun form. It means that something is out there, out and about, and it's going around and people are getting exposed to it. People are they're able to get it or they're able to use it. So if something is in circulation like that, it means that you can be exposed to it. It was only a matter of time before things went south, before things kind of got bad.
Yeah, before we move on to go south, I wanted to mention we'll often use circulation to talk about the air in a room. Sometimes the room can feel really stuffy, meaning there's no fresh air coming in. So the room has bad air circulation. You might want to open some windows, bring in some fresh air. Things went south because they were putting radium in all of these products. Can you imagine?
Wasn't a good idea.
No. If things go south, guys, it just means something fails or it quits or it stops working or it gets worse. Maybe you, like me, have bought a computer before and within a month it goes south, meaning it stops working very well. You probably bought a lemon like I did, a bad computer. So we're going to keep talking about the Radium Girls, guys. But first, we're going to take a quick break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
好，各位同学，大家好，我是 Patrick 老师。我们今天要一起学习的是 Unit 10第10个单元 Being Reckless with Radiation, the Story of the Radium Girls. 由于教育普及，现在大家都知道放射性物质对于人体健康可能造成的伤害。不过，在20世纪初期，当时大众对于放射物质认识有限，发生过一些悲剧。第10单元呈现的就是与放射性元素镭有关的女工悲剧，同时这也是篇章结构的测验题型。开始解题之前，老师想再次跟大家强调，篇章结构最重要的就是回填的句子要和前后文连贯，在文意概念上承先启后，请大家谨记8字真言，哪8字？前后连贯，文意通顺。秉持这个原则答题，相信任何难题都能迎刃而解。平常练习题目，实际上场考试的时候，请同学务必先要把回填的选项都一一浏览过，再回去看文章。好，我们现在开始解题。请看第一题的前一句 But this， 这 this 所指的是 Radioactivity means danger， 放射辐射意味着危险 But this wasn't always common knowledge 好，一直到后面 in their products 但这并非总是一般常识意思是说不是所有人都知道辐射很危险实际上20世纪初期很多制造商生产产品的时候好像怕放的不够多这样的做法当然是一大错误，是重大安全问题，会出人命的。我们检视4个选项，发现 C，As you can imagine, this grave error yielded deadly results. This grave error, 这项重大错误产生了致命的结果。This grave error 就是指制造商的错误做法，因此与前文连贯。第一题空格，我们选 C。接着我们解第二题。请看第二段第一句，著名的科学家玛丽居里和皮耶居里在西元1898年发现了放射性元素镭，其后就是第二题的空格。我们继续看空格后的句子，这个元素会自然发出亮光，因此在字体发光涂料和许多家用产品当中受到广泛的使用。空格前一句提到居里夫妇发现元素镭，空格后一句 提到雷的特性，我们可以推测，为了前后连贯、文意通顺，空格本句也应该提到化学元素雷，所以我们选 B。B 的意思是，尽管有使用后果的相关警告，制造业者还是轻率地使用了雷。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. It's our history unit today, and we're talking about the Radium Girls. It's a story in history, in U.S. history, about a group of women who worked in a factory who were exposed to radium, which is radiation, and they actually, a lot of them ended up passing away, but some became very, very ill.And they discovered at that point that maybe they shouldn't be putting radium in things like they were. They kind of went a little bit crazy. They were so excited when it was first invented. You know, a lot of times that happens. Something new comes out, everybody wants to use it. And then later on you find out, oh, maybe it's not so healthy. You know what I mean?I keep waiting for them to say those little earbuds, are going to cause cancer.
Oh, who knows? It could be anything,
I know. We've all used them for years.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how healthy some of us are in 30 years. So let's keep talking about this. When we left you, we were talking about how it had been discovered. Radium has always existed in the earth. It's a chemical.And it was discovered by the French scientists Marie and Pierre Curie, and it was back in 1898. And immediately, because it was so kind of cool, it glowed green, and they started putting it in things like paint, household products. People were painting it on their walls. That's so healthy. And even using it as a health remedy, something that would fix some sort of...condition that you might have had, maybe like asthma. I'm not sure how it would help with blindness, guys, but back then they were trying just about anything. Our medical knowledge was a little bit lacking back at the turn of the century. We've come a long way since then.
That's right. Unfortunately, with radium, things went south pretty fast.Things got bad or, went in the wrong direction from happy to bad times. In the 1920s, a number of young women, all of whom were employed by the United States Radium Corporation, began dying. Okay, it's never good when one employee dies of your corporation, but a number of young women. So here's several. We don't know exactly how many, but there was more than one, let's say. A lot of these women started to get sick and they began dying. Well,What was the reason, or what did they have in common? They worked in the company's factories where they painted watch faces. Now, the face of the watch is basically the part of the watch you look at to tell time. That's the watch face. They were painting these watch faces with radium-laced paint. If something is laced with something, it means that it contains that. So this is radium-laced paint. This paint contains some radium.The women had been instructed or told, okay, if you're instructed to do something, it means you're told, usually by a person in authority. It could be your teacher can instruct you or your parents can instruct you. They can tell you or teach you to do something. The women had been instructed to point their brushes by wetting them with their lips, which they did hundreds of times a day.Okay, so they have these brushes that they actually put into their mouths to put a point on the brush. Usually if a brush is not wet, it is flat and all what's called the bristles, the hairs of the brush will all be, they won't stick
Spread
together.
Out, yeah.
But if you put it in your mouth to make it wet, you point it. That means you can actually put a point on the brush. And if you put the brush in the radium and then put the brush in your mouth,Basically, what you're doing is you're eating this radium, which we know now is not a good thing.
Yeah. When they talk about the point, guys, that's just the way they expressed it. It's just taking that wide brush and making it wet and then shaping it into a tip. So they were putting that into their mouths hundreds of times every day.
Yikes.
It had radium in it. It says, after regularly ingesting radium for years, many of the workers developed horrifying tumors and necrosis in their jaws. So if you ingest something, you take it into your body, like food. So they were putting it in their mouths, and then it was being swallowed by them, of course. And if you talk about something that's horrifying, it's something that's very upsetting, horrible to look at. Maybe it's shocking to you, but it's greatly upsetting. We use horrifying a lot when we're talking about terrible accidents, maybe, or natural disasters where people are hurt quite badly. We have horror movies, which are scary and usually have scenes of people being killed in gross ways, lots of blood, lots of guts. Horrifying is an adjective, guys. If you want to put a superlative on it, it would be more horrifying and most horrifying. And tumors are groups of cells that grow. They can be benign, which means they don't have cancer in them, and you won't die from it. You can take care of it. Or they'll be malignant, which means it has cancer in it. And necrosis is really gross, but it's when cells die in your body, and usually what happens is the skin on the outside turns black.
Eesh.
Yeah, it's an awful thing, and it doesn't recover, guys. Once you get necrosis, those cells are gone, so they have to cut away some of your jaw, your skin. Maybe you have necrosis on an arm or a leg. It's not a good thing.
Several of these so-called Radium Girls sued the company. Okay, when you sue a company or when you sue someone, basically you take them to court. They've harmed you in some way, and so you sue them to try and get something back from them, usually some money or something like that. So the Radium Girls sued the company, which had known about the dangers of radium. So the company knew about it, but had kept it. So they kept it secret. They kept it from lower-level workers. The public nature of the trial and mounting death toll from radiation poisoning brought a swift end to the popularity of these products. So mounting, if something is mounting, it's getting higher and higher. If something is mounting, it's growing in size. And here we have a death toll. Now, a death toll is the number of people that die from something. It could be the death toll from a disease or the death toll from a natural disaster like an earthquake. Yeah, so the death toll, you never want a high number with the death toll because that means a lot of people have died.
Yeah, guys, I just wanted to mention with mounting, it's an adjective and it has to be, it will only occur before a noun. So here our noun is the death toll, right? Mounting death toll, gradually increasing death toll. So sadly, this didn't save the Radium Girls. You can sue people, guys, but if you're going to die, that money or whatever you win in court doesn't really help you. It might help your family later, but many of these girls died within a few years. However, their sad fate had a substantial impact on modern workers' rights and public understanding of the hazards of radioactivity. Oh, yes, I think we all learned very quickly that you wanted to avoid radium, and also that workers have rights. You can't just put them in a dangerous or hazardous situation and make them work so that you can become rich off this, the owners of the company and the executives. Hazards is our last vocabulary word, guys, and it just means something that's quite dangerous. So it's a source of danger. Maybe there are some hazards in your school that you've been warned about. You shouldn't go over there. You might fall off, or it's a little dangerous. It's hazardous. And a hazard, of course, is the noun form of hazardous, which is the adjective. Right now, someone who's never hazardous to our health is our Chinese teacher. We're going to listen one more time, and then we'll be back to wrap up.
我们继续解题，第3题空格前一句 In the 1920s 这个句子，中文意思是说，西元1920年代，许多年轻女性开始死亡，她们都受雇于美国雷企业。空格后的一句 The women had been instructed to The women had been instructed to 一直到后面 which they did hundreds of times every day 这句话的意思是工厂交代这些女性要用嘴唇沾湿刷子，把刷子弄尖， 他们每天都这样做好几百次。空格前一句提到受雇于美国雷企业的年轻女性，空格后一句则说明他们的工作细节。我们可以推测空格内的句子还是应该围绕在工厂工作的女性，所以我们选 A. They worked in the company's factories. They 所指的是这些在工厂上班，因为职业伤害而丧生的女性。要将镭当作涂料，涂在手表的表面。第三题我们选 A。 我们继续解第四题。前一句 Several of these so-called Radium Girls sued the company. 这一句到后面所指的是有好几位雷女郎控告这家公司，公司早就知道雷元素有危险，却隐瞒基层员工。空格的后一句 Sadly, this didn't save the Radium Girls, many of whom died within a few years. 这句话的意思是令人遗憾的，这还是救不了雷女郎的命，很多位在几年后就往生了。我们可以看到前一句的 sue 这个字，中文意思是控告，它和选项 D 里面的 trial 审判都是跟法律法庭相关的，这彼此呼应。审判受到了大众的关注，再加上辐射中毒死亡人数节节攀升，雷在产品上的应用迅速终结。第四题我们选 D， 选了 D 选项可以自然融入了前后文。接着我们来看几个重要的单字和片语。首先第一个在第三段第三句 be instructed to， 他们受到指示，有人交代他们怎么做。再来第二个 by wetting them， 这里的 them 所指的是 their brushes with their lips， 那就是女工获得指示必须要用嘴唇把这个刷子沾湿。 wet 在这里是当作动词的用法，不是形容词的用法。再来请同学看到有很多这些女性的员工得到了癌症，就是他们长出了肿瘤。 Many of the workers developed horrifying tumors。 长肿瘤动词用的是 developed tumors， 用 develop 这个动词。好，以上就是我们 Unit 10的中文解说，谢谢大家。
That's it, guys. We hope you learned a little bit more with the story of the Radium Girls. I know I did, and I want to go and see if I can find this film somewhere so I can learn a little bit more.
It sounds like it's going to be sad.
Yeah, it does, but I like history, so yeah, I think I'm still going to try it out. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you'll join us next time for English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Jacob. Bye-bye.